Good evening, a warm welcome to the West Yorkshire Football Show and our usual Monday night roundup and look at the region's action. I'm Chris Bell and I'm joined for now by Lewis Sale and Gareth Walker. Hopefully, in due course, we'll be joined by Dave Foy. And a little bit later on at half-time in the Leeds game, we'll also be joined by Stephen Brown and or Jason Booker, depending on how things pan out and how they're feeling, I guess, at the halfway stage of a slightly important game at the top end of the championship. Firstly, gents, how are we both? Are you well?
Good, mate. Thank you.
Yeah, very well, very well. A lot to get in. We're
Dave's
also joined, of course. We're also be joined by James Walshaw as well a little bit later on. As well, of course, the Ossett United manager. He'll be talking all things Ossett and his non-league career as well. We will start with Bradford City, though, Gaz. And, I mean, I imagine that you are still as high as a kite emotionally, that is, off the back of just those almighty performance from Bradford at the weekend.
Yes, we played really, really well. Just talking to Lou before we came on air. I think Lou watched it on Sky. I said, however long ago it was, maybe 3 weeks ago, something like that when we played Grimsby, that was the best we'd played all season. Well, Saturday were better. Like I said, I did a little bit of a review after the game, and obviously Walsall I think they'd won 9 in a row. We were 14 unbeaten. Obviously, they had to lose eventually, but given that it's Bradford City, I didn't for 1 minute expect it to be against us. And they came and they did what they do, or what I've seen them do before. The very physical side, very strong side, and they'll bully you and they'll run you over if you're not careful. And they started very strong. I think they had a couple of corners early doors, and we sort of a bit of a scramble in the box. We didn't really know where the ball was. But after that, we just took control, really took control. It sort of stemmed from, I think we had a breakaway and a chance in the box where Brad Hollidays ended up having his shot tipped onto the post. And from that moment onwards, we've just not looked back. Sarcevic and Poynton and Patterson and Smallwood, that midfield is just really, really strong at the moment. And it's dominating games since we've gone to that box midfield, and teams are struggling to cope. So long may it continue. Obviously, we haven't been playing that previously because Patterson and Sarcevic have both been injured long term, so having them back is a huge boost. And obviously, Andy Cook being out has meant that we're playing Kavanagh as like the sort of focal point of the attack, which is a little bit odd in a way because he's only small. But what he will do is he'll run all day. So that what we're often finding is that we'll go direct, we put a long ball up to Kavanagh, and he might not win it in the air. But what we do is we pick up the second ball, and Sarcevic and Poynton and Patterson as sort of the box to Patterson's like the box to box. He's a bit deeper next to Smallwood, but he's playing as the box to box. I've just been lethal, and yeah, long may it continue. Like I said again before we went on air, we've got Morecambe at home tomorrow night, who are bottom of the league. So the only way that the only thing you can do after beating top of the league is make sure you back it up, because if you were to not perform against Morecambe tomorrow night, then the performance on Saturday is completely wasted. So we have to stick at what we've been doing and continue as we've been doing.
Wouldn't it just be, I hate to say it, typical Bradford City though, to then go and absolutely just take top of the league Walsall apart, unbeaten in the league since I think it was October time, something like that.
Yeah, 9 games, whenever that was.
And then in the very next game, stumble and fall against bottom of the league Morecambe. It'd just be so typically City. But as you say, it's crucial if it's to be a good season that you back it up with a win over Morecambe.
Yeah, I think we're 5 wins in 6 or 8 in 10 or something like that now. I'm not quite sure the stat. It's something like that. But like you say, Chris, we do tend to struggle against sides that are down the bottom of the league.
And it's Derek Adams as well.
That was what I was just going to say. You've got the Derek Adams factor. Teams that come and sit in a low block and waste time and delay, and injury, and scrap and defend for their lives. And we do struggle. In the past, we have struggled to break down teams who play that way, and we get frustrated, and the crowd gets frustrated, and then something happens like they nick a goal on the break, and then it's all doom and gloom. So we've got to be prepared to deal with that tomorrow night. like I say, we've not really come up against that in this run that we've had so far. We did play against Carlisle. That was the league game before Walsall. And obviously Carlisle were bottom of the league at the time. They moved off the bottom, actually, having beaten whoever they beat at the weekend. And Morecambe slipped to the bottom. But Carlisle, even though they were bottom, don't play that way. Obviously, Mike Williamson, quite an attacking, progressive, tiki-taka type manager. So we didn't come up against it then. But we know what we're going to come up against with Morecambe, so we've got to be prepared for that. It's interesting that we made the changes that we made on Saturday. We took Sarcevic off. We took Poynton off. We took the 2 wing-backs off. And that was obviously, in my mind, that was saying, get yourselves ready for Tuesday night. The one that we didn't take off was Patterson. I would have liked to have seen him come off because obviously he's been fantastic. People are sort of talking about him on social media. I've seen a few social media accounts from other clubs discussing about whether he is the best midfielder in League Two at the moment, and it's been difficult to argue against that. Obviously, he's had a lot of injury problems, but since he's come back, he's really revitalised us. So it's going to be key keeping that midfield fit, but particularly Sarcevic and Patterson. So it would have been nice to have him protected a little bit on Saturday as well. But yeah, we just have to take each game as it comes, keep playing as we're playing, and really not change anything unless we have to.
Absolutely. I'm just going to take this opportunity to bring in Dave Foy, who has joined us. Thanks for joining us, yes. Dave. We'll come to you in due course. Just carrying on with Bradford, though, Gaz. Just remember coming to a comment from an occasional viewer is John. He's a Birmingham City fan. He says, flying visit. Hope we're well. Interested to hear from Gaz regarding Brendan Kayler, who is on loan to Bradford from us. Hopefully he gets some game time. How's he been doing? Has he really been getting the game time that obviously Birmingham will want him to get since his loan spell started?
He came off the bench actually on Saturday. That was the first time I think he's featured. He has been on the bench every game that we've played since he arrived, but I think Saturday was the first time he got on. I'm a bit unsure. I've not done a lot of research into what kind of midfielder he is. It'd be interesting to see where he fits in at City, to be honest, because I know we are well stacked in midfield. We've got we're sort of playing a box midfield, and so obviously 4 players are playing at starting each game, 4 midfielders, and then we've got 9 on the books at the moment. We are expecting Jamie Walker to go out at some point, possible the fans are. But it'd be interesting to see whether Kayler can play or what role he plays. Would he play as a box-to-box? Would he play as the defensive cover for Smallwood, or would he play as one of the attacking 8s or /10s? But I know he has also played at Birmingham as a wing-back. When he came on Saturday, he was sort of more of an 8 or a 10. He didn't play defensively at all. He was quite advanced.
There we go. John's reply. He says naturally an 8, but can play the 6 role if needed. I mean, it wouldn't shock me in this case if he was one of the 2 that was off the striker. But as you say, he's got that versatility. And actually, perhaps it's the versatility that's the main reason for Graham Alexander bringing him in to cover multiple positions potentially.
I think that's probably the case, Chris, yeah. It's interesting that he has played that 6 before because we do have 0 cover for Richie Smallwood in that 6th position. As an 8, he's going to struggle, I would imagine, but it depends how he's doing in training because after Patterson, Smallwood, Poynton and Sarcevic, there's nobody really you would say they're the next cap off the rank. So if he's performing well in training, he could easily come in. He did come on, like I say, came on Saturday, played more of as an 8, and we were 3-0 up at the time. But he did do one thing that was quite impressive. He put a brilliant ball in to Tommy Lee late on in the game. Tommy Lee came on. He's another new signing of ours, more of an attacking midfielder himself, but has played up front at times for Aki Stanley. And he came on in like a false 9 position. And Kayler was like on the right-hand side of the sort of the right-hand sided 8 position and put a brilliant ball over the top into Tommy Lee. And Tommy Lee ended up going clean on goal and nearly scored, actually. So if that's anything to go by, if he's got that kind of ball in his locker, he's going to be pushing for a place if anything was to happen to the 4 or if we were to rotate. Like I say, Birmingham obviously want him to have games, so I can't see him not featuring. He is going to get game time. It's just when that comes. Like I say, we don't want Patterson or Sarcevic to miss any game time because they've been fantastic. But if their injuries were to pick up, he could well be the next cap off the rank in there.
Lou?
Yeah, I mean, I watched the game, like I said, talking to Gaz in our chat as well on the Saturday. But what strikes me at the moment, he seems to have got a really good balance in that team. Listen, it's not the biggest of 11s at the moment. But, traditionally you do think of League Two teams having 6'2", 6'3" giants who are going to ping it long and play that way. But Alexander hasn't really got that kind of criteria within his squad, albeit that, the back four, back five, probably a little bit more. But when you look at the forward strike players, Sarcevic, Patterson, Point and Kavanagh, they're not blessed with height and have got to play a particular way. And I think that's what's really benefiting City at the moment. I thought on Saturday you just prevented Walsall from doing what they're good at doing. Walsall have been, picking up loose ends, going for set pieces. They're not a possession-based team in League Two, but what they are, they're very clinical. But from what City's perspective is they were likely to have more of a ball, and when they had the ball, they made the chances count. I was saying to Gaz, weren't we? For me, that's one of the most complete performances I've seen City play in a long, long time. Don't get me wrong, don't watch a moment away. I watch enough being in the City to kind of see extended highlights and stuff of City, but I thought it was arguably one of the better performances I've seen over, quite a sustained period of time. But for me, and I don't know your thoughts, Gaz, but, you've had a half-decent January transfer window, bringing next to Tommy Lee. Michael Mellon's not even really got on the pitch yet, like we said about Keller from Birmingham, Lapsley as well. Do you feel that's added some really good competition to the existing squad and has almost taken them to another level from what they were, probably a month or two ago?
I think it's certainly freshened things up. People wanted a striker bringing in anyway before Andy Cook got injured. Michael Mellon's, like you say, he's not even got on the pitch yet. I think he's the one signing that we've made in January that hasn't got any game time. I think he could be a case that he's finding his way to fitness because he didn't play much at Stockport. I believe he was injured while he was on loan at Stockport. But you can't drop Kavanagh the way he's playing at the moment. Like I say, he's not the biggest, but he's running his lungs off every single game. And that pressing, leading the press from the front, is really working. I would say regarding the midfielders, it's freshened it up. It's probably what it's done, Lou. Jamie Walker, been there a long time. We've been over-reliant on him at times, but you just got the impression he's dropped down the pecking order. Maybe things are going a little bit stale. He hasn't even made the bench since the new signings have come in. If what the Birmingham City fan John says about Kale is true, that he's been pushing for starts or he's been making the matchday squad at Birmingham, that's obviously showing that he's got the ability to definitely succeed at League Two level. You were right about the way that Walsall played. Or do play. I think I read that they're one of the lowest amount of possession in the league, but obviously a top of the league and quite easily top of the league at the moment. They did come and try and run us over, like I said at the start, which is what they do, and we stood up to it. What I will say is that the way the league table is at the moment, it's so tight. Like, other than Walsall, who were like 12 points clear. I know they've lost Nathan Lowe, who's gone back to Stoke, but it was quite interesting that Jamal Matt went off injured as well on Saturday. He's the captain. Obviously, it's been Matt and Lowe that have been playing up front. Now, I can't remember if it was 1-0 or 2-0 when Matt went off. But if they've lost both the strikers, that's a big, big blow, especially with top scorer, one of them, and the other one being the captain. You won't rule out maybe a little bit of a flop or a little bit of a bad run for them now. They've lost one, coming off the back of winning 9, and then they lose one, they lose a couple of players. You never know whether they're going to be able to be reined in. But yeah, the competition's certainly there in midfield. Like I said, it's freshened things up. Michael Mellon will be the competitor for Callum Kavanagh. We do still have Verdane Oliver on the books, who is that option to play the big man up front when we need to. I think, again, I'm reading between the lines, but there will be a pool of players that I would imagine that are available for transfer. If someone was to come in, you might be looking at, like I said, Jamie Walker, Verdane Oliver might be free to go if players come in. Whether they'd be replaced, I don't know, but it's just nice to have it freshened up. Good competition for places. We've suffered a heck of a lot with injuries this year, and at the moment, we are pretty clear, apart from Andy Cook, I think. So, yeah, long may it continue. And you're right, we dealt with what Walsall had to offer and came out the stronger team, and we've just got to keep doing what we're doing at the moment.
And I know we said, didn't we, Gaz, in terms of Andy Cook, didn't we, a few weeks ago when he got injured, almost saying, would you play better without him? Have you noticed a style difference in that?
Sorry, Lou, you broke up there. I think it might be my internet. Have I noticed a change since Cook got injured?
Yeah, sorry, Gaz. Yeah, just in terms of how you've had to play.
Yeah, in a way. What I will say is, like, obviously, Kavanagh presses more than Cook would. But I do think we could play the way we're playing with Cook in the team. Obviously, he's not the focal point. Kavanagh's not the focal point that Cook is. But I think there is an element at times, and whether it's psychological or whether it's deliberate, I honestly don't know. But on the pitch, it is everything goes through Andy Cook when Andy Cook's playing. And that's because of the record he's got and the reputation he's got in the division, and obviously what he's done for us over the years. There is an element. Maybe we are a little bit over-reliant on him. I think Jason McKeown's mentioned it in his Whip for the Post reports about, I can't remember what the theory is called. Is it the Ewing theory, taking the best player out of a team and suddenly things start to your performances improve even though your best player's not playing. I don't know whether that's psychological or, like you say, you change the way you play. What we are doing at the moment is getting around those second balls when Kavanagh's pressing. So whether we could do it with Cook in the side or not, I don't know. Obviously, we're not going to know what it'd be like to play this way with Cookie for a year. I would guess. So we will soon see how it continues. But yeah, there is a slight change in that we're just not all focusing on Andy Cook, and other players are stepping up to the point that they need to at the moment.
So let's move on then from kind of that to looking ahead to tomorrow, Gaz. We have a table very tight, just 2 points separate yourselves now in second place in the division. You kind of your thoughts and your prediction for tomorrow night?
Like you said, Chris, it's really tight. And what's interesting looking at the fixtures is we have a really, really tough April. Obviously, April coming towards the end of the season, but in that run at the end of April, or in April, we've got Port Vale away, Chesterfield away, Doncaster away, and Notts County at home in April. So we need to make sure that we're picking up points now and getting in on a good run now, so that we're in a good position when it gets to April and we're coming up against those sides. Like I said, we've got Morecambe on Saturday. Tomorrow. What I've also noticed is we've got quite a few home games at the moment, and our home record is very, very good, which is the flip side of what it's been in previous years when the away form's been better. We've got Morecambe, Aki, and MK Dons at home. They're our next three home games. The two aways in there, AFC Wimbledon on Saturday, and Newport. I think that's possibly a fortnight on Saturday. Or we've also got Harrogate at home in there as well. So we've got like 4 home games, 2 away games in the next 6. We need to carry on picking up points at home. Wimbledon on Saturday are one of the few teams that have a game in hand on us. We do have a game in hand on a few of those teams around us at the top of the division. Your Doncasters and your Crews, we've got games in hand on them. But Wimbledon actually have a game in hand on us. So that's going to be really, really tough. I believe their home record's pretty much as good as ours. So
yeah, it's a big game, isn't it, guys?
Yeah, we've got to win tomorrow night. I think City fans, daft as it sounds, having beaten Walsall, who were top of the league, City fans will believe more if we beat Morecambe, who are bottom of the league tomorrow night, because that's where we've stumbled in the past. But the fact that we've beaten Walsall, we play well against the decent sides, means that we can go in, especially if we beat Morecambe tomorrow, we can go into Wimbledon full of confidence. Sarchevich came out after the match, after the last 2 games, and said the boys are just buzzing at the moment. They're full of confidence. They're believing in what they're doing, and that's only going to get greater, the games that we win. Like I said, tomorrow will be a tougher test, a different test, because of the way Morecambe will approach it. They'll sit very deep in a low block. They'll be typical Derek Adams, and we've got to sort of somehow get over that and get past that. Now, an early goal would be brilliant. Whether we can get that, I don't know. The longer the game goes on, the more difficult it'll get. But if we get an early goal tomorrow night, backers, if we don't, it's going to become a real chore.
Absolutely. We'll soon be joined by James Walshaw. Before that, of course, we'll be keeping an eye on Leeds United. They are in action tonight. It's 3rd versus 1st in the Sky Bet Championship. Burnley taking on Leeds United. Leeds going with Melier in goal, a back 4 of Bogle, Rodon, Ampadu and Byram, Tanaka and Grew Evers, the 2 centre-mids, and then James Aronson and Solomon behind Joel Pirro. We will be keeping an eye on that one, of course. Big game it couldn't be much bigger, could it, Lou?
Massive game, innit? I'm watching it at the same time. We're almost having a bit of a mini watch along, aren't we, as well as talking for everything that's happening across our region. So, yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. It'll be really good to get people's comments, get some predictions in, how you think the game's going. We'll try and highlight what we can during the time we've got. And like you said, we're going to be catching up possibly with them at half-time, depending what the score is. And I know they're doing a post-match review, aren't they, the pair of them? So we'll either be crying or we'll be winning the league after tonight. Let's see.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be an interesting one. I'll be honest, I can't imagine we're going to have a particularly big viewership from Leeds United fans tonight with this being on as it stands. So that seems like a really good time to bring into the field James Walshaw, who's, of course, the manager of Ossett United, but he has been around our neck of the woods as long as I can remember as a player. Thanks for joining us, Wally.
No worries, good to be here. Nice to see you all.
I mean, I don't really know where to start with your career in West Yorkshire clubs, because there can't be too many of the West Yorkshire sides that you haven't featured for over your career. I'm going to start, though, kind of with one of the questions that came into us a little bit earlier on from Adam Bridson, who is, of course, a super fan when it comes to Guiseley. And I was on the media team back in the 2011, 2012 when you were there. I mean, Adam's question was simple. In terms of Guiseley and the career you had there, can you remember any particularly memorable goals that you have scored for the Lions, and who were some of the best players that you remember playing alongside for Guiseley?
Oh yeah, I had a good few years at Guiseley. In terms of memorable goals, I think one was a penalty in a playoff final, which was a really pressurised situation. I think the knees were a bit jelly-like and managed to score. I think that the standout ones was, I think it was going for the title, and it was we'd hit a bit of a stumbling block in terms of getting results, and it went down to kind of the last two games of the season, and I think we'd won 2-0 in both of the games, and I'd scored a brace in both games. And I think we were waiting around 5 minutes in the last game of the season. It was between us, Boston, Bradford, and I think there was another team in it, and it seemed like forever we were waiting on the pitch. We'd done our job, we were currently top, and I think there were about 6 or 7 minutes of injury time in Boston v Marine, and it ended up that they drew and we won the title. So I think they're kind of memorable goals that stick out for me, I think.
And as for the personnel and the players you've been alongside?
Yeah, in terms of Guiseley, I think kind of the old one was when I first started, we had a young Danny Ellis, Simon Inge, we had Adam Muller, so them kind of players stick out. We had a really close-knit group in those times, and I think, those players stick out for me.
Just saying, Wally, and this is a compliment, but for those who are watching will know Wally being a bit of a non-league favourite around this region. You always loved Wally in your team, but you absolutely hated you, mate, when you were playing with other teams. Is that kind of how you built your careers? Old school number 9 who would score goals, be an absolute pain in the backside for other teams, but you always brought the clubs together that you were winning. You were always relatively successful as well.
Yeah, I think I was built on kind of work rate and tenacity and getting in defenders' faces and buying free kicks and winning penalties.
No, you'd never.
I was waiting to see on that take.
Was hated by the opposition, but I kind of thrived off not being hated, but being disliked and scoring goals.
Villain. Let's go with that.
So yeah, that was kind of my aim, to get in the face of defenders, and ultimately I think it was the desire to score goals which kind of made me successful in non-league.
Is that almost respect as well for that? Because, like I say, you've played for pretty much every West Yorkshire non-league team, but wherever you've been, you've still got that element of you did something for that club. You've got a stat or a memorable moment where, like I say, people didn't like, you playing for the opposition, but at some point you probably joined them and you've done well for them, and it's always just come round, hasn't it? Where you've just got that mutual respect in non-league.
Yeah, I think fans wherever I've been appreciate kind of the desire and the work rate on the pitch. I think that's one thing that I give in every game. It was 100% effort, fighting for every ball, the desire to score goals, and then, like I say, it was appreciated. And I think wherever I've been, I've scored goals, which again gets the fans on side and is much appreciated.
In terms of your overall playing career, before obviously we get on to where you are now in the dugout, where would you say has been your most favourite time and your most memorable moment as a player?
I think it would be Guiseley. I think I had a good stint at Guiseley where we was playing really well consistently. We was winning. We had a couple of promotions. So I think Guiseley's a standout when I was there for a long time. So that's quite obvious. Then when I left Guiseley, I had a stint at Altrincham, and it were only for a season, but played some of my best football there. Ended up finishing top scorer in the Conference North. We eventually got promoted, ironically, beating Guiseley in the playoff final.
I was it hurt.
And it hurt me as well. It was kind of a bittersweet moment. But yeah, I think those two clubs really. I think I'd have to say Farsley as well. I enjoyed my stint at Farsley. I had 2 stints there, but I think the one where we got promoted again, bittersweet. But we beat Ossett Town then in the playoff final. So I think the memorable clubs are the one where you're always successful, I think.
Obviously, after your first spell, sorry, Lou, after your first spell kind of at Guiseley, you had that chance to go into the full-time game with Darlington as well. Obviously, at the time, I think you'd have been, 26, 27-year-old?
Yeah.
How was that little step up? And obviously, it didn't quite pan out as you would have wanted it to. But how did you find that step up from obviously being in Kitty's side and again, the goals that you were for Guiseley to go into Mark Cooper's Darlow squad?
Yeah, it was an interesting one. So yeah, we'd had a really good season. I think we'd won the Unibond, then we'd gone straight up into the Conference North, and then we were straight into the playoff final. So I think we're on the back of 3 seasons. We'd had 2 promotions and a playoff final. So I think you're always quite confident as a player going into whichever new club. Full time, I'd literally just had, well, not I just had, but my partner had just had Miles at the time. So I think we'd had Miles in July. We'd started pre-season, so it were obviously full-time football. So that was quite a difficult period. But I started pre-season like a house on fire. I think I was scoring goals. We ended up playing Newcastle in a pre-season friendly. There were 10,000 there. So I loved pre-season. I'd scored a hat-trick in the first half of a friendly against Whitby. Manager then, Mark Cooper, said, we're bringing you off, we're wrapping you up in cotton wool. So I was made to feel really appreciated. Then when the season started, for whatever reason, it just didn't gel. I think the team struggled as a result. Then I struggled. I weren't getting the chances. Obviously, it weren't for a lack of trying. 100% effort was there. And then because the team wasn't doing really well, the chairman decided to pull the plug, I think, 6 months into the season. Now, there's kind of a separate story why he did that. But obviously, having quit my job, just having Miles, it was then financial. It wasn't financially viable, so I went on loan to Halifax then. So yeah, from signing a 2-year professional deal, it lasted 4 or 5 months, and suddenly found myself back in non-league.
I was going to say that would have been just before kind of Darlow and all their problems, then, wouldn't it?
Yeah, so that was during their problems. So that they ended up, so they finished the season, and then I think they ended up folding and starting under another name. So it was quite difficult. I mean, I feel for the fans. Obviously, I think it was Raj Singh was the chairman. I think he's now chairman of Hartlepool.
That's the one, yeah.
So yeah, it was a difficult period. So having started pre-season ever so well, within like I say, 3 to 4 months, I was back in non-league.
Without kind of stirring up any demons, personally, that must be tough though, Wally, when you've finished your job, you've signed your full-time contract, you're hoping for the best, and then that happens to you. That must hurt you, mustn't it, personally? And from a non-league perspective, that's something that a lot of people may not realise happens.
Can you see me all right? She's frozen.
Oh, I think Yeah, we can see. I think you might have frozen at your end.
I'll have it. If you can see me, that's fine.
Yeah.
Sorry, just repeat that because
No, sorry, Wally. No, I was just saying from a
fine.
personal perspective, that must be really tough because, you've had you've got your move that you wanted, full-time role. You've quit your job, but then to be there 4 or 5 months, that must take a toll just personally on you guys, especially with a new one arriving.
Yeah, I think personally, professionally, it wasn't the best. Obviously, it was any young kid's dream to be a professional footballer, and kind of, I didn't start through an academy. I was pretty much a Sunday league footballer, which worked my way up through non-league, and to then get a 2-year professional contract and to suddenly have that pulled from under you is difficult to take.
Yeah.
I'm quite thick-skinned, so moved on relatively quickly. I think what a lot of people don't understand is I'd quit my job. I wasn't getting paid. Yes, we obviously had some savings, but in a personal life, Miles's mum at the time, she was on maternity, so that we weren't getting much income. We needed to move on, so hence went to Halifax, then went to Guiseley, and just kicked on. Eventually got my old job back, which everything panned out well in the end, but it was a difficult period.
Yeah, I can imagine it would be. So kind of moving on through your career, which we've spoken about, you played with clubs like Harrogate, who are doing really well in League Two now, and you've kind of gone down slightly down towards like the pyramid with Emily and Ossett and Liversidge. Just speak on your kind of final, so to speak, proper playing days before you went into management between them 3 clubs, because again, you've had relative success, promotions, county cup wins, etc.
Yeah, I think looking back at some of the clubs I've had, I moved on to. I've been successful at Scarborough, Buxton, went to Liversidge. I think kind of weren't getting in there, so then kind of dual registered with Emily for the first time. Did relatively well there. I think the aim at Emily was to go up in 3 seasons. It didn't quite happen then. Moved on to Ossett United, obviously a club close to my heart. So it was difficult to leave Emily because Emily's such a fantastic club. But Ossett is a club where kind of I started and is very close to my heart. So that was kind of a no-brainer to go back there. Didn't quite work out in a playing capacity, so went back to Emily. As I said, the target was promotion, and we ended up doing that. I think a successful season, scoring 31 goals. I think Ruben was 40. Ira Gooden had scored a lot, and ended up getting promotion. So that was, again, back end of the career. Scoring 31 goals is quite a successful, especially at my age. And then kind of starting this season, again, had the odd start and did relatively well.
So last week we had on your almost like predecessor with Paddy Miller, and he did say, I don't want James to kind of pick on me players saying they weren't fit enough, but now you're in the dugout, Wally, and I'm sure you got the players far fitter than what Paddy got your lads before. How's that going at Infield? Like you say, you've got a bit of an affinity with that club, like since the merger, you've become United. It's been happening for quite a while now. Just your thoughts on being in the dugout. I'm guessing it's so much different from pulling on your boots.
It's absolutely madness. I spoke to a few managers who say, well, welcome to the madhouse, or it's crazy. I think, looking back and taking the management position, I'd always kind of looked at Ossett's results, with it being kind of close to my heart. It's a sleeping giant as a club, and I think it needed someone to come in locally and understand what the fans want, blah, blah, blah. We was really struggling. It was a bit of a, let's say, gamble to take that job. I think when we first came in, we was averaging 0.4 points per game, conceding 2.3 goals per game, and then just scoring just over half a goal a game. So first and foremost, I was looking, right, you always have to look at the stats, I think, for me. Conceding a lot of goals, not scoring enough and not getting enough points. And I think that that was the main focus of improving that, as anyone would. But I think having had a successful non-league career, I think I understand what it needs. And I mean, I've been around some very good managers. I've been around some that are not so good. So I can kind of take the positives and the negatives from a lot, but equally put my own spin on things. And I think wherever I've been, I've always highlighted things that could you do this? Could you do that sort of thing? And I think we'd played Ossett, I think a couple of weeks before with Emily, and I'd highlighted various things that kind of was missing. We'd looked to change that, and now we're doing relatively well. I think I'm not going to bull myself up because it's a collective effort, and I think if people watch many of my interviews, I always heap the praise on the players because, yes, we can give them the tools and give them the information, but they're the players on the pitch and they're the ones that are performing. I think since I've come in, they're averaging now 1.67 points per game. The goals are up to 1.83 goals per game and conceding just over a goal. So the stats have kind of improved massively. And it's a credit not just to the players, but the people kind of behind the scenes as well who are working hard. I think the secretary, Spoff, who's kind of whenever I text him, he's on with it. If there's bad weather, there's other people behind the scenes who are getting training venues. So it is a real collective effort. And I think our motto is stronger together. And that's certainly where we're at the moment with Ossett.
Just going to take you back to the beginning of your career, Wally. Obviously, you said you came up sort of through the non-league ranks rather than an academy. How did you find that? And if you could have played in the league, who did you support as a kid? Who would you wanted to play for?
So my journey was quite different to many people. I think I literally just played with my mates up until kind of 11-year-old in the park, and then joined a club again with my friends and played just local level till 16. And then I ended up playing open age again with a local team. And Chris Dawson, who plays for Emily, I played with his dad, and his dad then managed Ossett Town's academy. So he said, come on, you've got to come up. So kind of played a few games in the academy, scored quite a few goals. And then within 7 or 8 games, I'd played with the reserves, and then I was straight into the first team, which was a real eye-opener because coming from local football with, several people watching you to then making your home debut at Ingfield with 300-400 people is quite nerve-wracking for a young kid. So I think that's kind of how I progressed. I think I was an avid Leeds supporter back then, so would have loved to have played Leeds. Kind of it's changed now because I've got a friend who's quite high up in the scouting network, and we used to get Man City tickets for free when Miles was quite young. So we went there for free, and now Miles is a diehard Man City fan, and I'm kind of hybrid Leeds and Man City, shall we say.
It could have turned out worse, I suppose, results-wise.
Yeah, it's good to watch kind of good football. I think I enjoy watching Premier League football, and I think linking to management, I like analysing, the formations and the styles of play and the movement of players. So it's nice in that respect.
How hard is it to transfer that to the Ingfield pitch?
What's that, sorry?
How hard is it to transfer what you watch on the Premier League to the Ingfield pitch?
Very well. Like any ground, you have to play the surface. I mean, you look at this level, and 1 minute you're playing on really nice surfaces, then not so good, and then you've got 4G. So you kind of have to adapt your approach in who you're playing. I think if you're playing sides on 4G, it's good to train on 4G the week prior, and equally if you're playing on a surface that's not great, you might try get a park session.
Just speaking of Neil, your secretary, you might want a pat on the back here because he asked a couple of questions as well. So whether he's texted you before, I don't know, but I'm going to give you him anyway. Already kind of what's your highlight as a manager, and what or who have you found most helpful? as a manager, present company excluded, probably from Neil.
Highlight as a manager. Obviously, the results against the top of the leagues has been really pleasing. So I think Cleethorpes were at the top and we beat them 4-1. Then we beat Belper the other week 3-0. So they're really pleasing results. But I think the highlight is kind of having the players and the staff buy into what we're trying to achieve. I think it could have been really different in that I could have gone in and it could have been a car crash. Confidence was low. We were underperforming. But I think in fairness to all the lads in the club, there's been a real reaction and there's kind of a different feel around the club now. So I think that for me is the highlight because it could have been very different, shall we say.
And finally, just before we let you leave, Wally, in terms of the rest of the season for yourselves at Ossett, let's be honest, it's still kind of getting out that relegation zone at the moment, but you're heading in the right direction with some good players, some good experienced players in there. And what are your expectations now for the second half of the season?
We'll go back to the cliche. It's about taking each game as it comes.
Oh, speaking like a proper manager, yeah.
Ultimately, our aim is to stay out of that bottom four and build from each game. I think we didn't have the greatest results against Emley on Saturday, albeit the performance was absolutely magnificent. We were down to 10 men for 40 minutes and the performance was really good. So it's building on each performance, each game, I think. Ponty
away tomorrow night as well. Nice little pitch on a wet Tuesday night.
Yeah, Ponty away. I'm informed there's a 3:30 pitch inspection. Yeah, I don't think it's been raining, so
we'll see. I think the forecast overnight might have something to say.
Yeah, I have seen the forecast. I think we're all eager to play. I think Pontefract's coming off the back of a good result. I can imagine both clubs are wanting to play this game. We've done our preparation. They will have done theirs. So hopefully it's on and we get a good performance and result.
But just before you do go, what do you make of the MPL East this season? Because of course for us on the show that we do, there's 7 West Yorkshire sides. Every other week we're getting West Yorkshire derbies out of it. How do you kind of assess the standard and the league as a whole?
I'll go back to consistency. I think on the day anyone can beat anyone, and it shows with the results. I think if the top teams drop their standards, they get turned over. Equally, if the bottom sides raise theirs and they're on an off day, it can throw up some strange results. So I think the standard is good, but it's about getting that consistency. And I think we've improved in our consistency, and the lads are working hard and buying into what we're trying to do. So yes, good standard, but just it's all about getting that consistency.
Excellent. Well, all the best for tomorrow night away at Ponty. All the best for the rest of the season as well, James. Thank you very much for taking the time to join us tonight.
No worries. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
No worries at all. Good to have you on, mate.
Thank you very much. Ta-ra.
Cheers, Wally.
Bye.
Bye.
There we go. That's James Walshaw, the Ossett United manager. And we said it, Lou, and obviously you see a lot of the MPL East following Avenue. It is a good standard, but results, there have been some recently in the last few weeks that have thrown up some surprises, to be fair. So that cliche, anyone can beat anyone.
Yeah, the standard is okay. There's some games, let's be brutally honest, like in any division, in any league, it can be poor. There's some games I've seen this season across the board where you scratch your head and thinking, it's not great. But then there's other games that will surprise a few folk. And, the likes of Ossett, who've, like Wally said there, have beaten the top teams. They've beaten the likes of Cleethorpes, Belper. They've pushed Emley very close at the weekend. So they've definitely got the quality in the ranks to get out of that. And like he's 100% right. Consistency is such a massive thing. And if you can put a good run in that league, you can almost jump 6-7 places in the space of a month. And Ossett, yeah, they've probably not got the rich resources that some other clubs in that division have got, but knowing likes of Wally and how he works from his playing days in the team he's assembling there, they'll fight till the very end, will Ossett. And, you know, I don't disagree with them. They do seem like a sleeping giant. You know, they're still getting half-decent crowds. Probably not as many as when they first started, but that will pick up with a bit of success. So it's one of those that's probably just bubbling under in the background that will eventually at some point kind of erupt into, you know, a really, really good, solid non-league outfit that will climb the leagues.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Let's stick with the non-league theme then and kind of work our way through the pyramid over the next kind of 10 15 minutes or so. And we'll start, of course, at the top of our non-league pyramid, Dave, with yourself and Halifax Town, who obviously there's been a couple of postponements in recent weeks, but back in action at the weekend, taking full advantage of a change of management at Solihull Moors by going down to Solihull and getting a cracking 2-0 win.
Yeah, and it's nice to obviously go down there and win after the 4-2 defeat in the playoffs last season, where we didn't really do ourselves any justice. I must highlight in the last 2 away games, we've beaten Gateshead and we've beaten Solihull. They're both well up there to play. You know, they're there for the top 7. What I've really liked is we've closed down and we've capitalised on teams trying to do that thing where they play it out from the back, and we've caught 2 teams out doing it now that have led to goals. So I'm really, really happy with that. There's a time and place for it, and I get that lumping it every time from a goalkeeper, you know, managers say the ball's just going to come back to you, but you just can't do it all the time. And I'm so glad that we're capitalising on teams trying to play it out from the back.
It's that press that is the antidote to Pep
Guardiola
football, and it's great. It's the antidote, and it's beautiful. Talk us through then the win at the weekend. Obviously, as you say, nice to go to Solihull and get the result, obviously off the back of the playoffs. But as a performance and the players themselves, the standout performers were.
I think Owen Bray, who scored the first goal, now has 2 in 2. He's got 4 in total. He got his other 2 in the National League Cups. He's just come back from injuries, and I mean, I have a very up and down relationship with Team of the Weeks, but he made the National League Team of the Weekend, so that's something, depending on your point of view. As I say, I have a bit of an up-down relationship with Team of the Weeks, but yeah, for those that are interested, he made the Team of the Week, which is good. We've got a few people back from injury now. We've lost a couple. We've lost Jamie Cook and Florent Hottie, but we're probably at the strongest we've been all season now. In terms of injuries, Billy Waters left for Oldham. That got announced last week. So we brought in Luke Thomas from Leeds United, had been on loan previously at York. Didn't really get a foothold in the team, which is understandable when they've got Ollie Pearce, among others. And they're also top of the National League, played against Halifax at the Shea in York's win. And he set up the second goal with like a little backheel flicked volley. I don't know what else to call it. Flicked it on excellently. By all accounts, had a great game. But the Solihull win, it's still come off the back of a bit of good fortune. I think Solihull hit a post after a couple of minutes. You know, if that goes in, it swings the game totally different. We scored after 4 minutes and, you know, the momentum went the other way. I can't remember the last time I've been on the show. I could probably keep us here for like another hour and a half talking about off-field matters, you know, and I'm sure we're all fully aware of what they are. But in terms of actually on the pitch, there's no real complaints. Sam Johnson got his 150th clean sheet at the weekend in his 425th game. You know, I mean, that's what, as a guesstimate, just under 1 in 3, keeping a clean sheet. Ridiculous numbers, especially for a club at 5th division level. Coming for a little bit of undue criticism this season, I feel, but all in all, most of the time, sort of, you've got other people that cover non-league as a whole on social media, and they always highlight Sam Johnson and Halifax Town's back fours. You know, I could reel off a laundry list of players that we've currently got and players that have moved on to bigger and better things in our back four. But yeah, things are very, very good on the pitch. The problem is the pitch.
Yes, I was going to come on to that in due course. Before we kind of come to the pitch itself and, of course, the stadium and talk, just very quickly then, the table, obviously, as it is, 8th, level on points with Oldham in 7th and Rochdale in 6th that are in those playoff places. As you say, the fact that you've been taking results against likes of Solihull and Gateshead recently, keeping you well and truly in that playoff mix.
Absolutely. I mean, we're top of the away table. We've got 26 points from, we played 13 games, I think. But that, again, it's a bit swings and roundabouts. I'm always a bit swings and roundabouts when I come on this show. Our home form, we're 20th. So it's, do you know what I mean? If we can just get a little bit better at home, I have I'm 99% confident we'll make the top 7 if we can just improve as home form. But again, it comes round to what we're going to discuss.
Yes.
Let's
come to that then, because Ian has asked the question. Any news on the future of the Shea, Dave? Now, I feel like that might open a can of worms. Brownie might be with us in 10 minutes or so. Off you go, Dave. Any news on the future of the Shea? I mean, look, the last I think we'd seen is that Ken Davey, the Huddersfield Giants owner, was seeking to buy.
Yeah, I've tried to keep abreast of every article that's been written from Total Rugby League through, I think there was Rugby League World, Halifax Courier, Huddersfield Hub. I've tried to read and digest everything going on with this sale. We've also got, there was the first people to go public about the Shea Stadium and its future was essentially a not-for-profit trust that was made up of people that have been involved previously about 20 years ago. And it was something that I was fully behind. One of those members of that particular, I think it was a 6-man group, has now, I don't want to say he hasn't quit the trust, but he's took a massive couple of steps back from his role within the trust. So I've sort of been trying to keep up to date in about what he's been saying. It's hard really because I've tried to read all of it. I mean, Ken Davies come out publicly. He's almost, I want to say, laid all his cards on the table, and there's some real alarming words in there. I don't really know where to go with it. He's talking about essentially giving both the football and the rugby club, Halifax Panthers, interest-free loans to sort the pitch out, get a proper top-of-the-art pitch laid, drainage sorted, all that kind of stuff. And then he wants to buy the ground and then in a few years' time sell it back at market value. But if we've already put the money into the ground, are we essentially going to get charged twice for the pitch? What's stopping the council lending us money? Yeah, it comes down to money. What's stopping David Bosworth doing an interest-free loan? It sounds very like, from what I understand it, there's some kind of grants that can only be unlocked through the football club. It raises more questions than it answers. Should we get promoted? We've got 2 rugby league teams that also play there. EFL rules, I think, dictate that if you share with one rugby club, you have to have a Deso pitch. You know, so if we've got 2 rugby teams, I think Newport, there was some kind of, Newport not got themselves in hot water, but Newport had some questions to answer when they got promoted because they shared Rodney Parade with 2 rugby teams. It throws up a lot more questions than what it answers. If the Huddersfield Giants are only looking to come for a few years, why do they need to buy the ground? Just rent it until you've found somewhere in Huddersfield. I don't understand the need for Ken Davey to actually own the stadium.
What's the current ownership of the stadium? I'm thinking it is just Halifax Council.
It's, Calderdale Council own the ground. They said recently, or when they first went public about their, in inverted commas, disposal of the share, they were saying it lost £161,000 a year. They're off figures that have probably been affected by COVID, when we'd have had everybody would have had no money coming into anything. You know, fans couldn't attend, which meant catering contractors. It's just, I don't want to say anything that's incorrect or could lead us into any kind of hot water, as obviously like a news. You know, we're a football show, we're a news outlet. I could say something that's potentially libelous. So I'm trying very carefully to just say what's already in the public domain. You know, some people have argued, especially the people that are involved with the trust, about this 161,000. They've compared it to places like the Peace Hall that I think loses £500,000 a year, despite all of the good work that seems to go on there, and you know the music, the venue.
Staggering.
It's still, there's rumours it still loses £500,000 a year. I believe the Victoria Theatre is subsidised. It's the pitch issue's been going on for however long, you know, well over a decade. It's been known, and it's just never been able to seem to get his heads together. The rugby club don't really need it. That's the stumbling block. They don't really need a decent surface to play rugby league on. A game we played yesterday in the Challenge Cup, a game that they won. It's just, there's only really the football club that needs the decent surface. Ken Davies come in and said he's going to modernise the stadium, put a scoreboard in like I couldn't care less about scoreboard. I know what the score is. I'm watching the game. But he's talking about it opens up like advert revenues. It can be seen by X amount of people. It might be a way to make money, to sell like advertising rights, etc. But yeah, there's my gut instinct is it won't have a happy ending in 5-10 years whenever Ken Davey decides that the share's no longer in his best interests because he will actually own it. He's come out and said he essentially wants to sell it back to the two clubs. No prices have been said. I mean, he won't know, will he? That's the only thing I can say. You wouldn't really know. He said he's going to freeze the rent for a year, what it currently is. What happens in year 2? What if he triples it? What if it goes quadruple and neither team can afford and he owns the ground? Where does that leave everybody? The Panthers, I think, have had to borrow or have essentially had to take their funding from the Rugby League, from the Championship, which would have gone into their budget this year to clear a tax debt or clear some kind of tax last season. So they're not getting a same amount of funding this year. So there's obviously things going on behind the scenes at the rugby club, but
it still.
I can't really say any more on that.
Ironically, it still seems to be as clear as mud at the moment. Gaz, I think, have you got one for Dave?
Yeah, you kind of covered it, Dave, and I think you were. I'm going to ask it anyway. What's in it for Ken Davey? What's in it for him to buy it?
Wow.
He can sell a piece of prime estate for a couple of £1 million in a few years. That's the only answer I can personally give. Because
looking for the profit.
Well,
yeah,
he wants it as a stopgap, doesn't he?
Yeah,
because it's weird because this issue obviously affects both from the footballing aspect. Obviously, Halifax Town and Huddersfield Town as well, and the premise is that effectively Huddersfield Town want to own the John Smith Stadium outright. So Ken Davey is thinking, right, I will use the Shea to play the Huddersfield Giants game in the temporary. I will then build the Giants a new stadium within Huddersfield, and then when the Giants are ready to move into the new stadium, the Shea, as you said, could be sold back to Town and the Panthers. Obviously, price depending in however long's time. So effectively, he's basically getting out of it a short-term stopgap for his own side, the Giants.
Yeah.
As you've said, as David said, kind of promising to improve things around the Shea in the short term that will then last beyond that. But then, as you say, everything is still so unclear as to any agreements. How do you obviously market value now, for example, will be different to what market value is in 3, 5, 8 years time. It's there's a lot still to work out. Are we, without kind of hijacking your question, Gaz, Dave, are we any clearer, do we think, Dave, in terms of a timeline? What is the next step? Are any agreements seeming to be formalized or anything?
There's a lot of things that seem to trip one another up, like the shares meant to be under an ACV, which is an asset of community value. Should the need arise for it to be sold, this ACV should give the community as a whole 6 months to raise the money or raise an adequate amount to actually buy it themselves. There's a lot of things in the timeline, like Ken Davey wants the pitch sorted as soon as possible, which would be this summer. But then if the ACV comes into place in March, that gives the community should, in theory, give the community 6 months, which would take you into at least September before them 6 months are up. There's a lot of things that overlap. David Bosamworth seems to be in agreement with Ken Davey's bid, though. We've not heard a lot from him. I've obviously said on the previous show, it's been maybe over a year now. He fell ill. Something happened to David Bosamworth, and he's still attended matches, but we haven't heard from him as much publicly, other than a few lines in a Halifax Courier article a few weeks ago that almost he was behind Ken Davey's bid, which is obviously, other supporters are like, we need to hear more from you about this, other than you giving a couple of lines to the local newspaper, the Examiner, the Courier, I can't remember, that you agree with it. Why do you agree with it? Why is it a good idea? And I think a lot of people are like, what's going on? And it's going to just happen anyway. It's going to happen anyway, not necessarily in the background, but I think there's things in place that, the wheels are already in motion. I don't think it can be stopped. I think Ken Davey is going to own the Shea Stadium. I don't know how much he's going to pay for it. What happened to Fartown? I think Ken Davies still considering it, Ian, as a site from what I've read, but there's again certain obstacles in the way. He's apparently identified 3, 4, 5 different sites within Huddersfield itself. I think he owns some land that hasn't got much going on at the minute, but there's a lot of. I'm not sure if he's had planning application. I've read that much about it. I seem to think he's had 2 or 3, maybe 4 planning applications in Huddersfield previously rejected. So from Halifax Town point of view, the question supporters have asked is why, if he's so adamant that they're not going to stay, why not just rent the ground until you can move? Like, I don't know, if you do the ground up, you could essentially play there almost rent free if you if certain agreements can be put in place. There's all sorts of different avenues that can be explored.
I'm just going to bring in James's opinion. So obviously James is a Huddersfield Town fan. He says that he saved Huddersfield Town. It was at the time for his own interest, but in the long term, it did help the club out over time. I guess it's a case of if he buys the Shay, it's his to upgrade, improve, do what he wants with, without having to necessarily. Obviously, he'll have to go through planning permission for certain things. Whereas if he rents from Calderdale Council, I guess he doesn't have a great deal of flexibility in what he could do to improve the ground.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, another thing with Ken Davies is he's 84 years old. Let's not. I don't want to go down that avenue, but Ken Davies, OBE for services to sport, admittedly. He's 84 years old and buying he's buying a sports stadium. Anything could happen. Apparently his children are interested in sport. I think that might just be a rumour. I don't think that's really been in any articles, but he's not, a bit like David Bosworth in his late 60s, early 70s, Ken Davies in his 80s. What happens, God forbid, should he pass away?
Yeah.
What happens to the ground then?
Oh, I would imagine it'll all be in the paperwork, all these what ifs, and it'll all be in any contracts that do eventually get there. Let's finally kind of move away then from the off and back to the on field, and just a quick look ahead. Obviously, no game for Town tomorrow night. So on Saturday, Ebbsfleet at home, who are rock bottom of the National League. So hey, that home form that you said was a little bit iffy could improve or should improve with the way Ebbsfleet have been going.
Yeah, Ebbsfleet have signed a striker about 5 weeks ago, and I think he's got 4 or 5 goals in that period. Signed him from a West Yorkshire club where he couldn't actually score. Sometimes it just doesn't work out at our club. But Aaron Cosgrave's coming back. He's in pretty good form from what I've seen. I think he's scored in, like I say, I think he's got 4 or 5 goals in like 5 or 6 weeks. He's scoring in the trophy, scoring in the league, so he's doing quite well for him. Everything's set up for a former player to come back to haunt us at home with our patchy home form. I'm going to be honest, I don't think it'll be on. I think it'll be postponed. I don't think there'll be a match Saturday. We haven't played a league home game since the 3rd of December. At home to Sutton. It did fall that way anyway. December, we only had 3 fixtures. We had a free weekend should we have got through in the FA Trophy, which we didn't. So we'd have had 3 away games anyway. We do actually play tomorrow. Officially, we're playing Sunderland in the National League Cup.
Sorry, yes, of course.
Yeah, we're bottom of our table though with 1 point, so I don't think we can qualify any further irrelevant of result.
Yeah, I did see your group earlier. It's cut and dried already. I think it's already Newcastle on 21s and Leeds on 21s. They're already like 4 points clear of whoever's third, and they've only got 1 game to play. So I think your side, your table is spot on.
We got 1 point because we drew 2-2 with Leeds, and you get after 90 minutes, I think you get a point for that result, and then if you win on penalties, I think you get an extra point. So Leeds got 2 points, we got 1. But yeah, we've lost every game at home. And I said on a previous show, it may have even been the last show that I was on, I would probably be dead against the National League Cup, the National League Cup trophy, but because it works for Millington and his background, and Andy Cooper, and the way that we go about business at the moment, it's just right up Chris Millington and Andy Cooper and the way that they recruit Street. It's, they're always looking at under 21, under 23. The amount of players we've signed from Leeds, under 23s, Luca Thomas, Jack Jenkins, Owen Bray, other places. We have the youngest side in the National League, so it works for us as a club at the moment. If it didn't, I'd be a bit more against it.
Yeah, it has.
It's a bit like everybody was up in arms that Tamworth didn't get a replay against Tottenham at full time after 0-0. What everybody forgot was they beat Burton Albion in extra time in the second round to actually get there. So which is it? But yeah, you know, I mean, I'd be totally behind that. I know I'm going off track a little bit, but yeah, Tamworth deserved to go to Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, but the change in the laws allowed them to have that third round tie in the first place. So it's like you can't have your cake and eat it. They may have beaten Burton in the replay. It's ifs, buts, and maybes, but they won in extra time to get to the third round. So you can't have both.
So true. So
Yeah.
true.
You know, guys who were robbed of a replay at Stevenage in the first round.
Yeah.
That's who I feel sorry for more than anyone else. If we're keeping it West Yorkshire, you know.
Well, that's lovely to hear from a town fan as well.
Mm.
Dave, thanks for the roundup on that. Let's turn to you, Lou, and the rest of the non-league scene. Obviously, kind of working down the leagues. Farsley Celtic, ignoring on the pitch for a moment. Another statement from Paul Barthorpe last night.
Yeah, another statement regarding the pitch and kind of some alleged stuff that's happened, which obviously we're not going to get into detail. It's fair for everybody to read. Obviously, it's out there in the public, isn't it, for what people want to kind of come to the conclusion of. But the update from Paul Barthorpe himself, as we go through the statement, is we've agreed a start date of the pitch for week commencing the 10th of Feb, which is in a couple of weeks' time. With the FA National League and main contractor, and we've also agreed a completion date of week commencing the 24th, including significant works on the stadium as a whole. The plan of works will be issued upon commencement. So that is the latest date in the diary for the pitch and the stadium works to happen. Let's see what happens regarding that. But what I will say is, off the pitch, there's a lot of stuff happening. On the pitch, they finally got a result against Warrington. Much needed result. It wasn't 3 points, but a point all the same. But they've got two big games coming up. 2 games in the space of 3-4 days this week.
Just repeat that work start date. Sorry again.
So just to confirm word for word, we have agreed a start date for the pitch of week commencing the 10th of February with the FA, the National League and the main contractor. We have also agreed the completion date of week commencing the 24th of March. This will include significant works on the stadium as a whole, and a plan of works will be issued upon commencement.
I mean, there is going to be, I expect, a little bit of, in non-league terms at least, a bit of a media circus, I reckon, then down at Throstle Nest or the Citadel on the 10th of February, waiting to see who turns up and whether it actually starts.
So from now, we're talking, 7 weeks? 1, 2, 3... Near enough 7 weeks, 7-8 weeks. So let's see. Let's find out. Hopefully it does. Hopefully it does for the sake of the club and the fans to get them back home where they belong. But yeah, this is a thing now. They've got 2 of the biggest games of the season where you'd arguably want to be at home, but they've got Buxton, against Marine tomorrow night. And then on Friday night, we play Alfreton, who've lost 5 on a bounce as well. I watched the interview with Billy Heath, who was not a happy man based on that defeat against Needham Market early at the weekend. So big couple of games so far. They just need to pick up wins. They couldn't get over the line against Warrington, but like I said, they didn't lose. They've got to get some consistency now to get them out of trouble.
Yeah, absolutely. Into the MPL and Guiseley, what a win for them. Comfortable. In the end, away at Worksop Town, which should have been, without a doubt, probably the second most difficult game of the season.
Yeah, and probably the result of the weekend for me, across the board, along with Bradford City's victory against Walsall. Guiseley going to Worksop, second against third in the playoff push, and Guiseley have not just won, comfortably beaten a playoff rival 4-1. Listen, it might come back to it where both teams probably might fight it out for promotion push in the playoff final, but psychologically, that's got to do the world of good. Listening to Bauer's interview at the end of the game, he was really happy, dominating most of the game. And you don't win 4-1 by chance, do you? That is a comprehensive win. A very tough trip away to Morpeth tomorrow night. That is a long trip midweek, followed by a home fixture to Lancaster on Saturday. So Guiseley, knowing Mark and Bosch in away weight, just want to back up that win on Saturday with those 2 fixtures.
Yeah, well, a long way to go, but a nice ground to go to, Morpeth. You know,
Very
Tuesday night.
picturesque, yeah.
It is beautiful. We'll pause with the non-league stuff before they get too ratty, and we'll bring in Jason Booker and Stephen Brown, and they will absolutely lose their minds if we'd have just carried on talking non-league for the next 10 minutes. But whilst it is half-time in the Leeds game, goalless at the break at Turf Moor. How are we, gents? Jay, Brownie, how are you doing?
How about mate?
Good. It looks weird, Jason, on the bottom line. I'm not gonna lie. Get him on that top row. Come on.
Sorry, Lou.
Is that any better?
Relegated as well. Lovely. Fantastic.
Firstly, how are you both doing? You well?
Not bad.
Stressed.
Yeah. I was saying, joking about it, but I've not really had time to think about the game today. And then, like 10 minutes before kickoff, it was kind of like, oh yeah, this is actually a massive game. It is without a doubt the biggest game of the season so far for us. But it's kind of playing out exactly as I kind of thought it would. Really cagey, both sides not really wanting to go for it. No chance. I don't think we've conceded a shot on goal yet on target anyway, and I think we had one. And we could have made a little bit more of a couple of moments. But my word, are they boring. They are so boring.
4 shots apiece, none on target according to the stats.
That makes
they're direct. Very direct, I would say. But yeah, it was. You could tell it was a bit of a nervy start as well. There were a couple of misplaced passes early on. Ampadu, he had a bit of a stinker with one. That nearly let them in. But it is very cagey. I think Altanaka has been Leeds' best player, him and Bogle. I think he's just controlled that midfield so well. Hasn't looked like the occasions too much for him. A couple of other players may be guilty of that. I'm a bit frustrated with Pirro, though. I've mentioned it in the group. This for me is crying out for a target man to win those headers, be a bit more aggressive, holding the ball up, and he's just not doing that for me. So I'm a bit frustrated watching him so far. But to be honest, I think 1 goal's probably going to be enough to win it. I think we definitely look good enough to do it. I would think we've edged it, actually. I think we've significantly edged it. I think we've controlled most of the game. And we do look a better team than them. Absolutely no question. But it's just if we can get that breakthrough. We've dilly-dallied a couple of times when we could have maybe just gone for it a bit more. Jayden Bogle is our main attacking outlet at the minute, though. He's just absolutely fantastic up and down that right flank. So, yeah, it's, but it's cagey, but it's okay. It's okay so far.
It's gonna come through in a minute if it comes either Jayden Bogle or Manor Solomon. That's kind of how it feels. I think I totally understand the decision. It was one that we spoke about in the review at the weekend, Brownie, was the decision to drop Rothwell and bring in Gruev for this game. I weren't sure whether Gruev would make it just because of his injuries and coming back into fitness, but totally understand it, and we have looked defensively solid because of it, but we do lose that injection of kind of directness through the midfield as well, which then when you combine it with the fact that Pirro isn't always what we need him to be in the 9, Brendan's not that in between number 10, which will pick the pocket, it kind of leaves us a little bit lacking going forward in them central spaces. But I agree with you, because for me, I'd be happy to get out of here with a 0-0. I think 0-0 is a really, really good result for us.
You've taken my next question.
Sorry.
No, it's just exactly that. I mean, obviously, as it stands, look, with the way the table is, a win would put you, 4 points clear. A draw would just keep things as they are, of course. And look, should Burnley win, then suddenly they're level on points with you. And there's suddenly 1 point, between the top 3 in the Championship.
Yeah, I think, obviously, away from home, it's a better result for us than it is for them. And I think, given the nature of the 2 teams, I think we're more likely to pick up more points throughout the rest of the season. So I think these games are pretty crucial for the way that the season will pan out. So for me, a point would be absolutely fine. Now, obviously, having that opportunity to pull a 6-point lead over Burnley would be massive. It is still pretty significant. So we want to win the game, but not at a consequence of them losing it.
Really rubbish. Present a question for you chaps. How important is the first goal in this game?
Very.
It's a 1-0 game, innit? It's a 1-0 game either way. Just like the game at Ellen Road, it literally is.
We've got different. What do you make of Manor Solomon at the minute? Because obviously he's not been in the game. Everything's going down the right-hand side. So, Manor's had quite a quiet half, but I don't think he's seen that much of the ball or had that much opportunity. I'm just wondering if this is possibly a Ramazani game who can maybe come on and get a winner for us.
You know what, Brandon, though? Like, he's been doubled up on every single time down that side. And I
know
think
what they're doing
Byron's,
with him, don't they?
yeah, Byron's had a great half defensively, but because he's not got the ability to really go down the outside, it's leaving us a little bit stagnant on that side, which is probably why we're getting more joy on the other. But yeah, I don't think it's out of Solomon. You have a look, every time Solomon squares the defender up, he's got two of them. He's got Jaden Anthony and Connor Roberts both on him. So yeah, it's a tough one for him to get involved. But, you know, that's up to him and the player that he is to kind of find that one moment. And he likely will. You know, like, that's what the best players at the level do, innit? So, yeah.
We've got options. We've got things we can do from the bench, but I wouldn't be mixing it up too much. I think we want to stay resolute defensively and not leave ourselves open, but we'll wait and see. So tune in at 10 o'clock for the proper show. We get some proper debate.
Is the debate with you two?
Well,
you seem to be fairly on the same page a lot of the time.
Yeah,
sometimes we do have the odd disagreement, but
we're
both
once every 6 months.
Yeah, we're both correct all the time. So, like, what do you want me to say?
Like good old Brian.
Oh, he's gone.
We've lost Chris. He's back.
No, I'm back. So yeah, what time are you guys going to be on? Obviously, we just have full time, but around 10 o'clock here.
Yeah, around 10. Yeah, probably 5 past, 10 past, something like that. Yeah, straight after you guys.
There we go. We'll let you go then, because I think the second half is due to start in a minute or two. But Jay, Brownie, thanks for jumping on. And Leeds fans, if there's any tuned in, which I said earlier, I'm not expecting much of a Leeds following right now to be tuned in. But if you are, the lads will be back around 10 o'clock-ish with the Leeds United review for the game against Burnley. Cheers for joining us, lads.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
See ya.
And there we go. That was a very swift visit from them on the Leeds game. We can turn our attention back to more important things now, Lou, and the NPL East.
Yeah, another really busy calendar in across the weekend, and obviously coming up midweek. So just to touch on some results that affected teams in our area. So Garforth, a really, really good win away at Bridlington, 3-2. Brighouse, again, shuffling the pack a little bit, but another solid 2-2 draw against Newton Aycliffe. We spoke about Wally's team, unfortunately losing 1-0 at home to another of our teams, Emily. Liversidge drew away at Grimsby Borough, 1-1. Not an easy place to go, really isn't. So Sedge coming away with a draw away from home again isn't too bad. And the unbeaten weekend for our teams continue with Ponty picking up a 2-1 victory against Sherwood Colliery. So, yeah, good from our teams and encouraging.
What about the lad who's gone to Dundalk from Brighouse? Is it Edwards?
I saw that earlier, Dave. Yeah.
I'm sure they're an Irish Premier League side, or they're certainly in second division, Dundalk.
They were in Europe last season, I think.
Yeah.
The Europe Conference League.
Yes, he's gone from 8th division of English football all the way up to Irish Premier.
I'm trying to think of it. What was the name, Dave?
I'd seen somebody else that had signed for them. I can't remember who it was as well for Dundalk, but they've been busy of late, it's fair to say.
I should have really looked it up, shouldn't I? With my
No,
interest in
because Ethan Vaughan. Ethan Vaughan.
Ethan Vaughan, yeah.
He was on Guiseley's book.
Yeah, Guiseley's books. He's played for Avenue a couple of games as well. So, yeah, it's an interesting one. Interesting when to see how he gets on over there. It's a good opportunity, isn't it, for the lads. So, yeah, and then midweek, a few games, weather dependent. Obviously, like we said, Ponty Ossett, Sedge at home to Carlton Town. Carlton very direct. So that'll be a real tough game. Watched them a couple of times this season. But not the easiest on the eye. But they'll give Sedge a really good battle. And knowing what Sedge are like as well, they'll get stuck in. We'll tell his lot. And for me, probably one of the picks of a week so far is North Ferriby at home to Emily. That's a playoff push for both teams. And I think for both clubs, they'll be probably happy with a draw. But if they get a win, they'll be ecstatic of that. And then Wednesday night, the Brighouse are at home to Heaton Stannington. Interesting one. Interesting calendar.
Yeah, absolutely. What I'm possibly looking to get across to is Brighouse on Wednesday night. Either that or Campion in the West Riding County Cup game against Tadcaster, either way. Into the NCL. Before we go to the weekend, there is one game in the NCL tonight as well, taking place half-time in the game between Albion Sports and Silsden. Silsden are a goal to the good in that one as they would go, as it stands, 12 points clear at the top of the NCL, because they also got a good win on Saturday, Lou, against Frickley Athletic, 4-0 win for Silverstone, 2 for Casey Stewart, and 2 for that man, as always, Cale Price.
Yeah, 2 of them score goals for fun, don't they? Casey Stewart scored tonight against Albion as well, so
that's his 20th of the season.
Yeah, the 2 strikers who will score goals in any division, regardless of whether you're in the NCL or the Premier League, if you've got a goal scorer, you're going to be up towards the top end of the table, aren't you? And Silverstone, it's taken a few years to get to the point where they're actually at the top of the table and kind of pushing us to where they should be, but they seem to be doing it now. So yeah, I mean, it's a very good, solid win against Frickley. Without being disrespectful, Frickley, it's probably expected. Not really doing as well as probably what they have done in previous years, but you know what, solid from Silverstone.
Yeah, not having the best of seasons, it's fair to say, Frickley, who sit 18th at the moment. Albion Sports, of course, who Silverstone are away at tonight, they had a really good win of their own at the weekend as well, 5-0 win over Winterton Rangers.
Yeah, absolutely. Just before I get on to Albion as well, one of the friends of the show, Socky, as well, who was kicked off at Route 1 Rovers and most recently at Farsley, is now joined Silverstone as head of recruitment and development. So again, good news for him and the team there. So and listen, obviously we know it's deadline day next week, so we'll be on extended. So we're going to try and see if we can get one of the guys from Silverstone on, which would be really nice to promote themselves. So Albion, listen, it's tough. It's tough, and we keep on saying this in this NCL league. There's a lot of good West Yorkshire teams all fighting out for the same spot. Galk have just dropped off a little bit in recent weeks. Disappointing 1-0 loss away at Bottisford. But like I say, Albion got, 5-6 games in hand on a lot of teams above them. So they could easily get into that playoff push. And they'll probably be disappointed to be losing 1-0 at the moment. Probably just shows the levels between where Silverstone and Albion are. I think Albion have just been so close. They're almost for nearly people at the moment. But at some point it will click and we'll get there eventually. But yeah, you look at the table, Galka, Fackley, Albion, Campion have got games in hand as well. So we've said it week in, week out, there's potential for that top spot in the playoff places to be taken by all West Yorkshire teams.
Yeah, absolutely. Elsewhere in the NCL then, Fackley, as you touched on it then, Lou, as with Galka with their defeat at Boxford, that defeat for them away at Hallam, a 3-1 defeat for them.
Yeah, Hallam are riding a bit of a crest of a wave at the moment, especially midweek. Yeah. The famous oldest football derby in the world.
1,500, weren't they, between Hallam and Sheffield in midweek? And it's absolutely fantastic to see, is that?
Yeah, it's stunning. Anybody's gone to Hallam, the pitch goes in one direction, that's down. It is an interesting pitch, interesting stadium.
It also goes
up whichever way you're looking, whichever way you are. Yeah, but yeah,
come down.
Absolutely. So yeah, it's probably on the back of that really good win against Fackley, who are going to be very thereabouts as well. So I still think Fackley will be in a playoff push. I really do. Really strong outfit, and I think it's one that can use as fuel for the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll run through the remaining NCL results whilst Lou tries to sort his throat out.
Thank you.
Eccleshill, they got a good 1-0 win over Handsworth at home. Tadcaster, they were beaten 2-1 at Parkgate. And Campion, they won away at Penistone Church by 2-1. As in that one. Say again, Lou?
That's a big win for Campion. That we needed that.
Yeah, they did indeed. And again, Campion, you look at the fact that they've got 2 games in hand, for example, on Hallam. If they were to win them both, they'd leapfrog them, might themselves end up in a playoff place yet. Into the NCL Division 1 for the sides in our region. I mean, we touched on the fact that Bradford City got a great win and Guiseley got a great win. Horbury Town did it by scoring the most goals. 9-1 win for them over rather beleaguered Appleby Froding, who unsurprisingly, off the back of that result and results previously, at bottom of the league. But 9 goals for Horbury, mate.
Yeah, personally, I know I actually went to watch him and said they were exceptional, and 9-1 could have easily been double figures. So yeah, listen, it's top against bottom. Sometimes you might get, a sneaky 1-0, 2-0 comfortable victory, but in style 9-1, Appleby finding a minus 55 goal difference. Horbury absolutely flying. Yes, they've got 2 games probably even to some point 3 or 4 games on more than others, but we've got a little bit of a cushion now. I think the ones who will push them closest will be Wakefield. Obviously, they were postponed, so they do remain technically unbeaten. But listen, Wakefield are going to push them close. It's going to be a real fight between them two. But Horbury, listen, called it right at the beginning of the season, kind of told you so. 29 games played, 68 points, goal difference of plus 50. There's not many teams in the pyramid so far who've had such a good season like Horbury.
No, there aren't. It's, as I said, been a really, really good season so far for them. Elsewhere, South Leeds, they were beaten 2-1 at home by Selby Town. And Ilkley, they lost 1-0 away at Worsborough Bridge Athletic. And Shelley, they won 4-0 away at Yorkshire Amateur. Again, we've talked about the issues that Yorkshire Amateur have had. Their goal difference is only one better than Appleby Frodingham on -54. But for Shelley, a good win and good season, getting some goals as well. A 4-0 win on the road.
Yeah, like it's unfortunate for the Hammers, that gap just seems to be getting widening every other week, doesn't it? And I think 10 points adrift now, so it's going to be a real tough ask for them to get out of that situation. But you never know. You never know what can happen. But yeah, for the likes of Shelley, pull themselves away, kind of going to be steady away, bottom end of mid-table. Then looking upwards, like you say, Ilkley cementing a 5th spot at the moment, Wakefield 4th. So in South Leeds are very close to pushing that playoff push as well. And it's going to be tight. It's going to be really close. But like I say, I think all eyes will be on these two divisions, especially the Northern Premier League towards the end of the season for that. Hopefully all West Yorkshire top 5, top 6.
Yeah, absolutely. And then finally into the Northwest Counties, just the 2 results to kind of bring you there. Barnoldswick Town, they lost on the road away at Burscough. Despite leading at half-time, it was a 2-1 defeat for them in the Northern Counties Prem. And in the First Division North, Steeton not in action at the weekend. So the only other side is Route 1 Rovers. They were a 2-0 win over Skelmersdale United, who are themselves, to be fair, Skelmersdale struggling at the bottom end of the Northwest Counties table. So I think that rounds through all the non-league, unless I've missed anything, Lou.
No, nothing yet. Like I say, we'll keep everyone updated of what's going on around our region. You know, every day is a different news day in non-league. Either it's some player moving or there's a different situation happening. But like I say, we try our best to keep everyone updated. And if you can do, we do repost a lot of club accounts of when their games are. Just keep an eye out for any games. If you can get along and support your local club as normal.
Absolutely. The final side then that we kind of need to touch on, of course, he's not been able to join us this week is Stephen Downes and Huddersfield Town. And for them, Lou, a 1-0 defeat at home to Bolton. That really good unbeaten run that they've been on of late came to an end by a Bolton side that are, of course, searching for a manager after parting company with Ian Evatt.
Yeah, I was one of those where I was almost felt like I was a bit of a West Yorkshire football show, proper person.
Were you just watching everything? Were you going from
I was split screening
Huddersfield?
I was split screening. That's what I was doing. I was doing a proper football job. I had City on one TV, I had Huddersfield Bolton on the other as well. For Huddersfield, they just never got going. Just never seemed to get going, unfortunately, for them. Listen, it's one of those where you just said on paper, never is played on paper, is it? But Bolton have been struggling. Dane Charles has gone to Huddersfield from Bolton. Ian Evatt's left Bolton. It just seemed to just be one of those situations where football just writes its own scripts, doesn't it? And it seemed to be that where Bolton went to their John Smith's, sneaked a 1-0 win, get out of there, job done, happy days. And Huddersfield would be disappointed. What surprised me a lot was some of the reaction of the fans. There were a lot of murmurs, quite a few, not jeers, but just seemed to be quite a bit of discontent. Which again is strange considering the run they've been on, how well they're doing. And listen, Bolton is still not a half bad team. They're okay at Bolton. We're not going to win the league and they're probably not going to get promoted. But after the run you've been on, we were there, weren't we, Chris, against Lincoln, and you felt that bit of anxious, a bit of apprehension on the terraces until the players almost gave the crowd something to give them something to shout about. And I felt that a little bit watching the game, and it came across a little bit in the acoustics. So that was surprising. But listen, it's one of those, it's disappointing. And obviously what's happened in the previous week or two doesn't help that situation. But they're going to still be in the playoffs. They probably should be enough to be in the playoffs and give a good title push for it. But it's going to be one of those where I think it's harsh to say this, but sometimes you just need those results just to give you a little bit of realism, just a little bit of a kickstart, just to probably go, actually, we might not be as good as what we might think we are. Just resets the focus a little bit and sharpens it.
Yeah, as I say, it might be a result that might do them a little bit of good if they
Yeah,
can
I
get the
think so.
positives out of it in the grand scheme of things. Obviously, for the League One table. Sorry, Gaz, are you going to...
No, I was just going to say, like, the Huddersfield fans have got to realise they've been on a really good run, as Lou says. And the thing now is they've lost one game. They've got to make sure it don't go streaky, like it has done at City, where we've gone winning run, not winning run. Main thing now is to bounce back. You've lost one game at the end of the day. You're still up there. I think a disappointment from their point of view has got to be that obviously what Wrexham played Birmingham, so there were points going to be dropped in that game there, and Town fans are probably looking at it thinking we can take advantage here. I still think, looking at the table, obviously I was at the City game on Saturday. I've only seen the brief highlights, but looking at the table, it's still going to be 4 goes into 2 for those automatics for me. And Huddersfield have just got to keep going. They'll get the playoffs, I've no doubt about that. And then it's just where they can fit, if they can sneak into that top 2. They will be disappointed, but bouncing back. And sometimes that can happen, can't it, with a changing manager? Like you say, Ian Everett's gone. You can have that impact. The caretaker managers are in. I saw rumours that Sam Allardyce is looking at possibly going back there. Now, that'd be huge for Bolton, never mind the division, never mind Bolton. But yeah, they're a decent side, Bolton, and the run was always going to end eventually. The key thing now is bouncing back and making sure you are still in that 4 pushing for 2.
Yeah, I had heard him say recently, though, that he'd go back in some capacity, but he wasn't entirely convinced that it would be in a managerial role. So he might be a watch this space for Allardyce return to Bolton. As for the League One table, though, I guess that the fact, though, that the positive that Huddersfield fans can take is that Birmingham, Wycombe, and Wrexham, the 3 sides above them, all took a point each. I mean, look, you looked at Wycombe dropping big points against Northampton Town, Dave, and I say nobody's really pulled away a particularly great deal, and that Town are still 7 points inside those playoff places. That win for Bolton, to be fair, does put them right back up with the pack. They are 9th on 41 points, just a point outside the playoffs, where Barnsley occupy that final playoff place. I mean, look, a couple of weeks ago, though, even I was looking as a Lincoln fan and thinking, now that's it, the playoffs have gone. Couple of good wins for Lincoln in recent weeks, and suddenly we're back to 4 points off the playoffs. It's just the nature of the League One table.
Yeah, it's a bit of a crazy table at the moment, and I still think it's trying to work itself out a little bit. I think you could probably look towards the likes of Huddersfield and probably go, that might be your cut-off point. I think Wycombe might just have enough in the bag just to see them through into the playoffs. I think, like I say, there's probably a cluster of teams that are going to fight it out. But listen, it could be one of those situations where Huddersfield lose against Bolton at the weekend. They've got Birmingham tomorrow night at home, arguably their biggest game of the season. If Huddersfield beat Birmingham, people would have gone, would have taken 3 points out of 2 games, because they'd have probably expected to beat Bolton and lose at home to Birmingham. So it could be the way down. So it's a situation where it might just work out in itself. We've got Northampton away, which, you know, sometimes football, again, like I said earlier, writes its scripts. Northampton went there and did the job, didn't they? We'll want a little bit of revenge. And then they've got Barnsley coming up in a bit of a derby coming up in the following week, who were in 6th. So Huddersfield can sort themselves out. It's not a coincidence they've gone 16 games unbeaten. Yes, some of them have been draws. Quite a few have been draws. But, you know, we've now got the likes of Joe Taylor. We've now got the likes of Dion Charles that can probably get the goals that might have turned them draws into wins. I don't think there's anything to panic about. I think we'll be absolutely fine. And like I say, tomorrow you might just get a completely different perspective come 10 o'clock if Huddersfield go and beat Birmingham, because then expectations go through the roof. And like I said, results have gone away. So it's not that bad, in my opinion.
No, not at all. I think that just about wraps us up then, gentlemen. Any other business that anyone's got to bring up? I think we've covered everything over the course of the evening and a little bit more besides. Obviously, the Leeds game is currently still goalless between Burnley and Leeds at Turf Moor. Jay and Stephen Brown will be on with the roundup show at the end of the game around 10 o'clock-ish for that one for Leeds fans to join us. Anything else, lads, or are we good to get off?
No, I think we're good to get off. I think, shall we talk about, we're going to be on next week, aren't we, for a bit of another mega stream as normal?
We are yet to finalise the time that we're going to start the stream, but of course, next Monday is transfer deadline day.
Get your yellow ties on, boys.
Can I wear a yellow tie over a t-shirt? Does it work? I don't know.
I haven't even got a tie, to be fair.
We'll all be on Amazon in the next couple of minutes, just getting one in preparation. But we will be on next week with a deadline day special, as we always do. We're hoping to get 1 or 2 guests from clubs up and down the levels of our region to join us for that one, and 1 or 2 other guests as well, hopefully over the course of it. Keep an eye out on the social media channels on X and on Facebook to find out when we'll be starting that one. I mean, as for when we finish it, Lou, I think the last couple, it's been well into the early hours of the day after.
Yeah, you guys have, because sometimes you don't have to work days, so you're all right. But yeah, it's a struggle Tuesday morning going to work and doing that. Yeah, listen, it's always a good streaming at transfer deadline day. It's traditionally the case where deadline day is an absolute something in a lift. It doesn't go down very well. It's damp squid. Nothing really happens until Leeds start announcing somebody at like 10 to 12. But yeah, no, it should be interesting. Hopefully, we get a few people on. What I'll do is we'll post something on our X account as well, and we'll see what people want for deadline day. If what kind of position, what kind of play would they like, and we'll try and get you involved next week. So get your comments in on that one. Like I said, it will be a bit of a marathon one, so all your help is appreciated through that one, ladies and gents, to keep us going through the night.
Yeah, just to give us more to talk about. And Gaz, I'm expecting Bradford City. I'm expecting something from them on deadline day, the way the window's panned out.
9 times out of 10 we do, Chris, but I think the way they're talking at the moment, it might be outs before ins. I think it might depend on who goes. Actually, Jamie Walker keeps saying...
This is it. It's going to be, the Leeds classic style of don't go to bed yet, only to watch Jamie Walker go out on loan to Tranmere Rovers.
Well, do you know what? Are you psychic, Chris? Because I think he has been linked with Tranmere in the past. But no, I think it'll be outs before ins at City. But rumours are abound about possibly a striker or a keeper. But I think, there'll be that little pool of players, Odo or Walker, who might be available to go, possibly like Verdane Oliver, obviously, as well. And if they go, there might be a bit of movement in. But that's just my opinion at the moment. I think it's a wait-and-see game at City.
There we go. So we will leave it there then. Join us next week for our deadline day special. Keep an eye on the social media for all the upcoming programs. Stephen Downsy might be back with a show later this week, reflecting on what Huddersfield do against Birmingham tomorrow night. So keep an eye out for that as well. But from myself and from Lou, from Dave and from Gaz, thanks for joining us over the course of the evening. We'll be back next week here on the West Yorkshire Football Show. Good night.
Night.